So, video game development is an absurdly tricky business, far more than most of us will ever realise, because even if a game is brilliantly crafted and well received by critics, if it's not given sufficient support by the publisher, it can still end up flopping hard. We've seen it countless examples over the years of games, whether good or bad, are just kicked out of the door with the clear indication that the publisher was basically sending them off to their demise. And that's what we're talking about today. But before we begin, we do need to qualify that not all of these games we think are going to end up being terrible. It's just that, well, it seems that the publishers in question behind them really don't care what happens to them either way. So let's talk about them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 upcoming video games being sent out to die. Number 8, Skull and Bones. Ubisoft's pirate-themed action-adventure game Skull and Bones was announced at E3 2017 with an originally planned release in late 2018, yet following numerous delays, word went suspiciously quiet on the project, which actually began development all the way back in 2013. In late 2020, the studio finally confirmed that Skull and Bones had been retooled with a new vision, hence the lengthy delay. And after years of many players assuming it had just become vaporware, its release date was finally announced earlier this year. Almost an entire decade after development started, Skull and Bones will release on November 8th of this year, which is a troubling release date for 2 reasons. For starters, this is a mere day before God of War Ragnarok comes out, a hugely anticipated game that will suck all the oxygen out of the room and leave little for Skull and Bones. And then there's the fact that Ubisoft has no choice but to release the game due to a contractual agreement with the Singapore government, who provided subsidies for the publisher on the condition that the title release within a set period. Yikes. Given the many extensive reports of the game's disastrous production, it's clear that Ubisoft just wants to be rid of this thing with all the grace and enthusiasm of somebody passing a kidney stone. Number 7, The Lord of the Rings Gollum. You'd barely know that a new Lord of the Rings game is due out for release in just a matter of weeks. So low-key has the marketing been for The Lord of the Rings Gollum. Developed by a studio that is best known for their point-and-click adventure games, it's fair to say that Gollum lacks the mega-budget sheen that you'd expect from a Rings game. But even so, the fanfare for this thing is shockingly low. With Amazon's Rings TV show, The Lord of the Rings of Power, set to premiere on September the 2nd, the day after Gollum's release, it's baffling that the game's marketing campaign hasn't attempted to piggyback off of this. The likely answer is that the publisher behind this game knows that they've got a dud on their hands and doesn't see much commercial value in excessively promoting the game. Instead, they're just going to send it out with a minimal push in the hopes of simply recouping their investment. Number 6, Valkyrie Elysium. The latest entry into the RPG series Valkyrie profile, Valkyrie Elysium, is set to release on September the 29th, and ever since its announcement earlier this year, fan opinion has been wildly divided on this project. The announcement trailer was met with considerable derision from fans, with many complaining about the unremarkable visuals and combat, feeling that the series' signature personality had been stripped away in favour of a generic, bland JRPG using the Valkyrie branding. Furthermore, it's the first major game in the series not to be developed by Tri-Ace, who have been replaced with the comparatively inexperienced and unproven outfit Soleil Inc. Given the roughness of that reveal trailer, many were surprised to see it releasing so soon, which perhaps suggests that Square Enix is basically tossing it out without sufficient care, likely aware that it doesn't meet the series' expected standard. Though the more recent trailer showed off markedly beefed up graphics, the hype train for this one still feels oddly low-key, even for a relatively niche JRPG franchise. Releasing in a crowded period for Square Enix published RPGs, namely the Direfield Chronicle, Nier Automata Potato Patata The End of Yora Edition, and Star Ocean The Divine Force, it's easy to believe that this one is just going to end up cratering commercially. Number 5, Gotham Knights. While just about any Batman video game is going to receive a ton of attention from fans, Gotham Knights is a bit of a curious case, considering that Batman's, well, actually dead in it, with the story instead focusing on Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, and Red Hood restoring peace to Gotham City. Gotham Knights is an action RPG with co-op functionality from Warner Bros. Games Montreal, the outfit behind Batman Arkham Origins, though reportedly exists within its own continuity away from the main Arkham series. Now, despite its on-paper potential, reactions to gameplay footage have been decidedly mixed, and that's if we're being kind, citing janky, floaty combat and a general feeling that Warner Bros. Is simply putting out this game to try and squeeze some lazy, easy money from the lucrative DC IP. The vibe is rather reminiscent of Square Enix's Marvel Avengers, a generic and underwhelming AAA superhero title that failed to make much of a dent with players. Considering that Gotham Knights' marketing push has been considerably more muted than Marvel's Marvel's Avengers, it feels like Warner Bros. Knows this thing isn't going to hit well, and is already turning their attention to focus on other more promising DC games like The Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and Wonder Woman. Number 4. Mario and Rabbids Spark of Hope. Now, it can't be overstated just how much of a surprise success that Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle was back in 2017. Like, for example, I personally hate the Rabbids with all of my being, and yet I played that game and I thought it was brilliant. Despite considerable fan skepticism that it'd be anything more than a cynical, half-baked crossover between the two beloved IPs, it ended up being a surging critical and commercial success. It's surprising then that it's taken Nintendo an entire 5 years to assemble a sequel, with Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope set to release on October the 20th. Now, there aren't any major worries about the game failing to deliver quality-wise, though some fans have expressed disappointment at Ubisoft doing away with the original's popular grid-based battle system. Yet, all in all, Sparks of Hope may struggle to differentiate itself as anything beyond, well, just being more of the same, even with its more open, less linear level design. Again, this isn't to say that Nintendo or Ubisoft thinks that Sparks of Hope is a doomed project, but it's clearly not a priority offering for either company. Hopefully, as its release date approaches, they might start pushing it a bit more, but at present it feels like it might just come and go while only making a fraction of Kingdom Battle's cultural impact, and therefore commercial success. But you know what? It would be great to be wrong about this one though. Number 3. Star Ocean: The Divine Force. The Star Ocean franchise has been having a tough time for a while now, with critical and fan reactions to the 4th and 5th games proving wildly mixed, enough so that many are praying that the upcoming 6th mainline entry, Star Ocean: The Divine Force, will put the series back on solid ground. Sadly, the trailers and gameplay footage released to date don't really suggest that. The Divine Force certainly doesn't look terrible, but it just looks like another standard, unremarkable entry into a flagging IP franchise. With many players noting the worryingly low frame rate, generally dated graphics, and abundance of questionable voice acting in the gameplay footage, this feels like a thoroughly mid offering that Square Enix likely knows won't break out beyond their hardcore fans. And so, that's probably why its presence on the gaming slate feels so low-key. But the biggest indication that Square Enix is sending this out to die? Well, they're daring to release it less than a week after a decidedly more anticipated RPG, the next-gen PC and Switch versions of Persona 5 Royale. Yeah, good luck with that. Even if the Divine Force is a return to decency for the franchise, it's abundantly clear that the publisher isn't giving it much thought at all. Number 2. Forspoken. Now, there are a lot of people that are certainly looking forward to the new PS5 console-exclusive action RPG Forspoken, which was officially announced in early 2021 with an original release date of May 24th of this year. Now, 2 delays have caused this game to be pushed to January 24th of next year though, and while this initially seems like a sensible enough call to ensure the game's quality, it's going to face stiff competition from another hugely anticipated AAA title releasing just 3 days later. The long-awaited Dead Space remake releases the very same week. And while the 2 games are, of course, in entirely different genres, it goes without saying that one of these 2 games has far more higher visibility than the other. If players interested in both games are pushed to choose one, and in this economic climate, with AAA games being priced as they are, most will, they'll probably just go for the safer option and pick Dead Space. Now, Square Enix certainly has time to remedy this by pushing Forspoken back a few weeks into a more amenable slot, but given that it's already been twice delayed, they may not wish to incur the wrath of shareholders by nudging it back yet again. We've seen time and time again how quality games have crashed out at retail because they're released the same day as another well-received game with a higher profile, and this feels like this may end up happening to Forspoken if it stays this course. And number 1, Hogwarts Legacy. Now, it's fair to say that any AAA Harry Potter-themed game should be dominating the headlines in the months leading up to its release, yet considering that Avalanche Studios' RPG Hogwarts Legacy is allegedly coming out before year's end, its presence couldn't feel much more low-key. Though gameplay footage first leaked in 2018, the game was officially unveiled in 2020, yet since then updates on the title have been sporadic at best. A state of play back in March revealed the first official gameplay, yet Hogwarts Legacy curiously sat out the entirety of Summer Games Fest, a prime marketing spot for games releasing at year's end, and hasn't been confirmed to appear at Gamescom either. Now, there's no denying the player interest in this title. I mean, just look at the YouTube metrics for the state of play gameplay, but it doesn't feel like Warner Bros. Is capitalizing on that excitement or building ahead of steam in their marketing campaign. We've seen countless times how a publisher's lack of communication with players can end up dampening the hype for an exciting release, and that's not to ignore the prospect of Hogwarts Legacy ultimately being pushed to 2023. Add to this the trickiness of marketing the game while basically treating the franchise creator J.K. Rowling as a persona non grata, per her controversial views, and Warner Brothers certainly has their work cut out for them. It's entirely possible that the publisher will kick the marketing machine into overdrive in the last few months prior to the game's holiday period release, but also don't be shocked if those YouTube views fail to translate into gangbuster numbers if the messy messaging continues. And there we go, my friends, those were 8 upcoming video games being sent out to die. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by Instagram where it's the same handle, RetroJ, but the O is a 0. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Sometimes in life it can feel like the odds are stacked against us, and we too can feel like we are being pushed out into a situation where we are not going to do well. But trust me, my friend, you just need to believe in yourself, but also know when to take a break every now and again, because with preparation and a little bit of perspective, you can tackle those seemingly difficult tasks in a healthier and happier way. And at the end of the day, that's all I want for you, alright? So be kind to yourself, because you are a big ledge, and give yourself the rest you need. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.